In the last video, we talked about some of the skills that artists develop while they're pursuing that lifestyle that sort of start to work against them as they try to pursue something a little bit more normal. But that's only half the picture, because there are just as many skills that just continue to serve you for the rest of your life. And some of them are pretty obvious, and some of them are a little bit less so. So I'd like to go over a few of those. And when I talk about artist skills, I'm not talking about like the literal techniques used in crafting that art. I'm talking about the kind of more passively gained skills from the pursuit itself. The things that you learned while you're trying to build something uncertain. So one of the biggest skills that artists develop is something that looks a little bit like entrepreneurship. Because when you decide to take art seriously, there usually isn't a clearly defined path. Like if you want to be a dentist, for example, you just kind of go to school, graduate, and there's probably a job waiting for you on the other side of that. And art's not really the same way. And even if someone ends up going to like an art school or a music school, those can be really great for building technical skills and especially community. But there's still no guarantee of a job on the other side of that, or it's unlikely that there is in the way that you imagined. So instead, artists typically end up giving themselves their own education. You learn how to create opportunities instead of waiting for them, and you learn how to find people who might need what you do, and you learn how to make a case for yourself. When I realized I wanted to make money with music, I found a really practical way of doing that was just finding cover gigs, which wasn't ideal, but it's much better than, whatever minimum wage job I would have been doing instead. And nowadays, I think it's kind of ubiquitous. Like a lot of places actually offer live music, but when I first started, it was a little bit more few and far between. But once I performed at a few places, I kind of got the idea. Like I started to understand what these people were looking for and the kinds of places that benefited from it and typically sought it out. So I would just go find some places that looked like they could benefit from live music. And I would find the owner or the manager, and I would just try to take a minute of their time. Half the time I had my guitar on me in case I needed to like prove that I wasn't awful. And I would just make my case to them about, why I thought that they should hire me, why I thought it would be beneficial for them. And so I got a lot of gigs that way. I was able to create work for myself that just kind of didn't exist before that. And that's not unique to me. That's what a lot of artists are doing in some form. You learn to build the path as you walk it. And that skill doesn't disappear just because you step away from the art world. Another thing artists tend to develop is a strong sensitivity to their environment. If something feels off, you know it pretty quickly. And more importantly, you're willing to leave. And that can, again, look like impulsivity from the outside, but a lot of the times it's just decisiveness. You're a lot less likely to stay somewhere that doesn't feel good just because it pays you well or it's familiar. And if you spent years being broke while doing something meaningful, you're usually not terrified about starting over. So that gives you flexibility and it gives you resilience. It also keeps you from wasting long stretches of your life in places where you know you don't belong. Probably one of the most important skills an artist develops is emotional literacy. At the end of the day, art is just a form of self-expression, and self-expression is a skill. It's not something that people are just born with. And if you want to make something that resonates with people, you have to get honest about your own internal experience. That means noticing what you feel and naming it, trying and failing to express it clearly. And pretty much everybody does this badly at first. Artists just tend to stick with it a lot longer. And over time, that changes the way you communicate. You get more comfortable being vulnerable and more direct, and you're less afraid to speak on what's actually happening rather than what's expected. And that shows up everywhere. It's in relationships, friendships, conflict, collaboration, and it also makes it really obvious when someone isn't doing that work. Not in a judgmental way, just in a clarifying kind of a way. You can tell when interest is genuine or transactional. You can tell when someone's avoiding themselves, and you tend to build fewer relationships, but like much deeper ones. And a lot of these skills aren't immediately profitable, but unprofitable doesn't mean useless. It just means they're context dependent. Self-expression, emotional awareness, adaptability, these aren't skills you just kind of plug directly into a paycheck, but they shape how you move through the world, how you generate trust, how you generate ideas, and how you respond when everything falls apart. I don't actually think that there's a single skill that artists, or any person for that matter, develops that you could truly say is useless. Some of them just wait longer to be called upon. One of my favorite moments on this topic of failure in art was in the third grade, and I had an art teacher who just had dry erase markers and a whiteboard, and she draws a house, and she's like, all right, well, let's say that like you wanted to draw like a man standing in front of the house. And so she started drawing his shoe and then messed it up. And so she stopped and went, now you might think this was a mistake, but maybe it wasn't. And then she turned that shoe into like a little stone, and then above that she made another smaller one, and another, so on and so forth. And she created a little pathway to the door of that house that she made. And as a kid, that felt like magic to me. I really struggled with that before that point. Whenever I messed up, I just figured like that was it. It didn't turn out how I wanted to, and I would just like throw away whatever I was working on. But it really drove home this idea to me that there are no mistakes. There's just the opportunity to see things differently. And a lot of my favorite work that I've witnessed personally has come from people who are like reaching for perfection to capture exactly what they had imagined and then failing to get there. And it's in that imperfection that originality lives. And so if you're in this moment where you're stepping away right now, I hope you stop calling any of it a failure. Nothing you build disappears. Even if you never pick up a medium again, the way you learn to see, feel, adapt, and express yourself just stays with you. And maybe that's what you were really developing the entire time. And when you're ready, I'm sure you'll find a new way to use it.